In the history of F1, there's been quite a number of shocking retirements, but there have only ever been two drivers who quit the sport immediately after winning their first World Drivers' Championship. The first was Mike Hawthorn. Although he became the first British World Champion driver in 1958, he announced his retirement immediately after winning. Everyone wasn't shocked about this though. F1 in the 50s was a time of deadly crashes, and Hawthorn had just lost his best friend, Peter Collins, in a race just a few months before. Hawthorn probably didn't want to end up like that. The second retirement was Nico Rosberg at the FIA prize-giving ceremony in 2016. Unlike Hawthorn, this retirement was not expected at all. He wasn't grieving, he had a winning car, and he'd been having some of his best years in the sport alongside Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. And to top off the list, Rosberg had just extended his contract with Mercedes. He was going to be $136 million richer at the end of the 2018 season, but he just walked away from it all. Today, he seems pretty content with his new career as a commentator, manager, and eco-entrepreneur. But what happened after the Abu Dhabi race that made Rosberg quit instead of winning a couple more championships like everyone thought he would? Stick around as we find out why, and remember to like and subscribe. It's easy to think of Rosberg's retirement as kind of a climax after his epic period at Mercedes, but that won't be entirely true. It would be more accurate to see the story beginning the moment he was born in 1985. His German mother, Jacine Dengel, worked as an interpreter, and Nico's father was none other than Keke Rosberg, the original Flying Finn. It is hard to figure out how much say Nico had in the decisions that shaped his childhood, but he was practically thrown to the racetrack the minute he was born. And even after that, everything Nico learned as a child was basically what his father considered necessary for an F1 career. For example, Nico can speak 5 different languages, including French, Spanish, and Italian, but he can't speak his native Finnish language. The reason for that? Keke didn't think Finnish was important for a racing career. By the time he was 10, Nico was well on his way to F1, and he had his father right beside him as his manager. But despite the fact that Nico's beginnings were very solid and he brought back trophies, both fans and the media never stopped comparing him with his World Championship father/manager. This event went as far as his early beginnings in F1. In case you didn't know, Keke is quite popular for his very daunting and aggressive driving style. Even off the track, Keke was cocky and flamboyant. Nico was not so much like his father, and when the media noticed it, they grilled him for it. He was a calm and calculated driver who was more concerned about data and technical information than just winging it out on the track. Because of that, everyone concluded he was a boring driver who couldn't thrill the fans. Despite all of this, Nico set out to make a name for himself. His first entry into F1 was a second test drive when he was just 19. The contract was with Williams, the same team his father won his championship title. He finally began racing for Williams in 2006, after scoring the highest since anyone ever took the Williams aptitude test. More proof of how much he understood car mechanics and F1 engineering. The media still didn't let him be at this point though. Everyone wanted to know if he was really any good or if he was just riding on his father's legacy. The amount of pressure on him to prove himself as quickly as possible probably had something to do with the fact that he asked his father to stop managing him in 2007, to which his father agreed. Then he began working with a sports psychologist. In 2009, Nico made the switch from Williams to Mercedes after the former team failed to provide him with a winning car. But Mercedes had yet another obstacle for Nico. He was going to be driving with Michael Schumacher. Compared to a 7-time World Championship title holder, Nico was just a rookie. So on top of the criticism he was probably still getting, he now had to convince his own team to treat him equally with his partner. He even had to watch what he said to the press, so Schumacher fans didn't accuse him of being an upstart. Again, he ignored all the criticism and kept on getting better and better. He beat Schumacher in almost every qualifying session, 16 times to 3. His World Championship points were higher than they had ever been, and in the 2012 Chinese Grand Prix, he managed to take first pole position and land his first career win. Obviously, he had what it took to make World Champion in a few years. Even the media had laid off his back at the time. But then Hamilton joined Mercedes in 2013, and Rosberg's game had to change all over again. When Hamilton first joined Mercedes, it was a reunion between old friends. The two of them used to be teammates during their go-karting days. But Hamilton already had a World Championship title, and Nico needed one. It was an immediate battle between the two. Rosberg beat Hamilton 8 times during the qualifiers, and when the season finally started, there was barely any difference between the two. But those differences mattered. Rosberg won 2 races that season, one of which was the Monaco Grand Prix. His father had come very close to winning twice. 2014 was when things started getting harder. Despite Mercedes' new F1 W05 hybrid car and Rosberg's very careful understanding of it, as well as having almost double the number of pole positions, Hamilton still managed to snatch the World Championship title that year. Hamilton also had 11 race wins that year. Nico only had 5. It was then Rosberg found himself in yet another world champion's shadow. First his father, then Schumacher, and now it was Hamilton. Even if he wanted to ignore it, the press wouldn't let him. It also didn't help that Hamilton also had that aggressive do-or-die style that Rosberg had always been criticised for lacking. He needed to step up, so he signed a 2-year extension to his contract, worth about $60 million, and he kept pushing. Never mind that he had just gotten married in July of that year to Vivian Sibold. Although 2015 would go down in an almost similar fashion as 2014, it was a season of adaptation for Rosberg, if you ignore the now extremely tense relationship between Hamilton and Rosberg. It was obvious something had to change if he was going to be able to beat Hamilton in 2016. The first step in that direction came during the 2015 off-season, where he revealed he had corrected a body deficiency to increase the flow of oxygen to his brain and muscles and increase his performance. Ahead of the 2016 season, he completely shut himself off from social media and whatever the press had to say about him. He tried to get enough sleep between races and also increased the amount of time he spent with his psychologist to up to 8 hours a week, excluding the time he spent meditating and learning philosophy and taking exercises for mental discipline and channeling the aggression everyone said he lacked. He even had his race gloves altered and asked to remove paint from his helmet to make it lighter by 80 grams. It's hard to imagine how these little things affected his performance. He began the season with a 4-race winning streak and incredible form that shocked everyone. Even when it seemed that Hamilton was taking the lead again in the next 8 races, Rosberg still raged on. During the mid-season interval, he modified his diet, cut out alcohol, stopped cycling, and had a second medical procedure that involved removing 1 kilo of muscles from both of his legs. Again, all of this paid off. When the season restarted, he had 3 more wins and 3 second-place finishes before the final season race at Abu Dhabi, where he was leading Hamilton by 12 points. All he had to do was take between 1st and 3rd place to win the Drivers' Championship. So despite that, he was once again 2nd place while Hamilton won. Nico Rosberg finally held the title he fought so hard to get. It was a little hard to imagine why he would do that at first, but he himself came forward to give the reason why he decided it was time to throw in the towel on his Formula 1 career. The first and most important reason was his family. While gearing up for his eventual victory, Nico welcomed his first child in August 2015. It's hard to say how much time he devoted to his family in that period, but it probably wasn't nearly enough in his opinion. And if he was to continue racing, especially with a rival like Hamilton beside him, he was probably going to spend less time in the years to come. He also didn't want to become an F1 has-been now that he had won the championship. There was the tendency for him to give up on trying as hard as he had in the previous years. Eventually, his skills could take a nosedive, and Nico could not imagine a life like that. All of this became clear to him the moment he saw that he finally had a chance to win the title after being in 2nd place for the 2 years before. He revealed that his existing $60 million was going to be extended for another 2 years and increased to $136 million, but that he had not even considered it while deciding to retire. It's safe to say Nico's analytical nature was more than the media reported, considering how difficult it is to contest his reasons. If you want to learn more about Rosberg's rivalry with Hamilton during their time at Mercedes, then check out our timeline of it here.